The Milwaukee Bucks have turned their season around, punctuated by a Cup championship and a dominating performance against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They held the Thunder to just 81 points, and specifically only 31 points in the entire second half. While OKC is widely regarded as the best defense in the league, the Bucks were able to out-defend them, even though they don't have the defensive talent that OKC does. So, how did they pull this off? Let's start with their game plan on Shai. When they were defending him, one of the moves they prepped for was a step back and pump fake. Because he could use his shiftiness to create so much separation, defenders feel the need to recover, which then makes a pump fake very useful. So Milwaukee made sure to not get in Shai's landing space. Even here where Trent does jump, he's not close enough for Shai to draw a foul, and Caruso has to take a tough three instead. The second thing was to make sure Andre Jackson stuck to Shai at all times because he's their best perimeter defender. One of the main problems early on was navigating screens. Once Jackson is behind the play, Shai has a wide open jumper or can also hit a teammate for a layup. But what makes Jackson a problem is his motor. He picked up Shai full court and still had the lateral quickness to stay in front. This play really stood out. So Shai creates a switch with Dame, but Jackson continuously pursues, which forces Shai way back out to the three-point line. As he's dogging him, Shai tries to step back and pump fake, and he doesn't fall for it, so he has to give the ball up and Lopez contests J-Dub's shot. So for OKC to make Shai's life a little easier, they started him off ball and used dribble handoffs to create that separation from Jackson. But Jackson would then top block Shai so that he can't use the screen. And while that opens up the cut, one of the Bucks bigs were ready, so there were at least two defenders in the paint. For example, here Jackson top blocks Shai so he goes back door, but Lopez is waiting in the paint so he takes an off balance fadeaway. As we discussed in the previous video, having one big man in modern basketball can be hard defensively because you can pull them away from the play and then attack the paint. But the Bucks are blessed with Brook Lopez and Giannis, so one guy is always at the rim. Here, Andre Jackson top blocks Shai, and Giannis takes away the backdoor cut. The Thunder pivot to another dribble handoff, and Lopez is there to affect the shot. On this one, the Thunder set two screens to help Shai shake off Jackson. Lopez steps up so Hartenstein dives, but Giannis is in the paint to contest that shot. Having two bigs that could trade off and protect the basket is really valuable for a team that doesn't have many great perimeter defenders. Andre Jackson can't play all 48 minutes, so there were times where Shai did get a favorable matchup, and that's where the Bucks bigs helped out by shading towards him. That then closes off any drives, and Shai has to rise over the top. Now Shai did make a couple of these shots, but he has a lot less room to really break down the defense. So even if he's making some of these, Milwaukee can keep everything in front. When Shai tried to drive, there were always multiple bodies in the paint. Besides J-Dub and Isaiah Joe, the Bucks aren't really worried about any of the Thunder's shooters, so Giannis would roam and leave his matchup to help, and it paid off as Caruso and Dort could not make the Bucks pay. OKC's offense is heavily reliant on Shai and J-Dub to make plays for everyone else, so Milwaukee was basically doing everything they can to keep the ball out of their hands. Keep in mind that OKC is one of the smaller teams in the league, so they need to make their perimeter shots even more than other teams. Besides Shai and J-Dub, no one on the Thunder is really comfortable putting the ball on the floor. When they didn't have the ball, Isaiah Joe tried running dribble handoffs, but he's not really putting pressure on the rim. And then consider the fact that there's so much size in the paint, it becomes really hard for OKC to generate really good shots. And that size disparity also played a huge role for the Bucks offense. The Thunder simply didn't have a good answer for Giannis. I mean, no one really does, but OKC elected to have J-Dub and Caruso try and check him. Now, both defenders are great, but Giannis' power and size was just way too much for them. Now, OKC knows that either defender can't necessarily hold up against Giannis on their own, so they often came with help. And that's where Brook Lopez comes into the picture. Knowing that Giannis would see multiple bodies, Lopez was essential to keeping OKC honest. Here, Lopez gets the ball to Giannis in the post, so Hartenstein comes to help on Giannis, which then allows Lopez to flash because he's the biggest guy in the paint and he scores. This time, Milwaukee smartly gets Lopez the ball in the middle, which then pulls Hartenstein up just enough. With Caruso on Giannis, he just needs to get close to the paint and he dunks it. On the next possession, Giannis and Lopez run pick and roll. Hartenstein has to be up high to cut off any potential Giannis drive, so Lopez ducks in the paint and he floats it in. When Hartenstein wasn't in the paint, the Thunder really had no chance of defending either Giannis or Lopez, so OKC started to bring more perimeter defenders, but Giannis is good enough at finding the Bucks shooters for 3-point shots. And that's how Milwaukee shot so much better from 3 than the Thunder. They made 17 out of 43s compared to the Thunder's 5. When you see a 3-point disparity that high, it's rarely because one team just shot it better than the other. Yes, personnel matters, but the Bucks 3-point shooters are not obviously better than the Thunder's. Instead, it's the size that Milwaukee presents that forces OKC to help, and that's my one concern with this Thunder team. Unlike Milwaukee, this team is pretty undersized, but they're able to accommodate for that by forcing turnovers. But the lack of size becomes much harder on the offensive end. Yes, they're very talented, and on most nights, they probably won't shoot this bad. But it's the ability to create rim pressure every night that is OKC's biggest challenge. Right now, their offense is very reliant on Shai and J-Dub to either shoot over the top of their matchup or figure out how to create driving lanes for those kick-out threes. They do have Chet coming back soon, but he also plays like a guard. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play against bigger teams like the Grizzlies, Rockets, and even the Celtics with Horford and Porzingis. For Milwaukee, their dominant win was a sign of them going back to their old ways of winning. In the Bud years, their mantra on defense was to clog the paint as much as possible and force teams to beat them from the outside. Even with Doc Rivers, they still could do this because of their great defensive bigs in Giannis and Lopez. And as long as those two continue to lock in defensively, Milwaukee might have turned themselves into a real contender in the East. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.